Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. My name is Sheridan. I am the dramaturg on this project and education coordinator at Theater Horizon. We're so excited to have this talk back with you all and with our digital audience as well. So if you have any questions for the creative team, either now or as our conversation goes on, please feel free to grab an index card and a pen. Gil's got them over there, and you can bring them on down to us, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. First of all, I would love to just introduce the incredible people we have with us here today. We'll start with Elle, our music director. Yes. Elle is a Philly-based artist, vocal producer, and member of Il Dutes, an incredible music collective in Philly. Seriously, if you don't know them, check them out. I highly recommend. We are lucky enough to also have had her as our composer and music director on Town, which some of you might have seen in September. She has worked in the Parleyphone Festival of New Musicals, as well as Theater in the X, Longworth Theater, to name a few. Elle, would you like anything to add about yourself?
No, that's it. That's perfect.
All right, love it. Yes, and we've got Rebecca Wright, Becky, our director of production. Becky is a prolific director, creator in Philadelphia, and is a founding company member of Applied Mechanics, with whom she has created 12 original immersive works of theater, which is incredible. She is a 2-time recipient of the Independence Fellowship in the Arts, and her productions of Slipshot and Peaceable Kingdom were both won the Brown Martin Philadelphia Award. And this year you can look forward to her directing Always the Hour with Annie Wilson, Red Riding Hood at the Arden, and Other Orbits with Applied Mechanics. Becky, anything you'd like to add? Awesome. And we are so lucky today to have James Magruder with us. James adapted Head Over Heels for Broadway, is our incredible playwright, so thank you for joining us. He made his Broadway debut with the book Triumph for Love. His adaptations have been staged across the country, as well as in Germany and Japan, and his dissertation, 3 French Comedies, was named an Outstanding Literary Translation of the Year. He's a fiction writer, a Lambda Literary Award finalist, and has taught at Swarthmore College, Princeton University, and Yale School of Drama, where he received his doctorate. So James, anything you'd like to tell us about yourself?
No, that's
All right. Well, thank you again all for being here today. Each of these members of the creative team came to Head Over Heels at a different stage in the process and lent their own interpretive lens to it. So today's conversation is going to focus, at least to start, on that process of adaptation and interpretation. We'll start with a question for you, James, our playwright, who dreamt up this version of Head Over Heels. James, we know you came into the mix of this production after a very different version of Head Over Heels premiered at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Can you tell us about how you got involved in the piece and what big changes were made?
Yeah. Before anything else, I just want to say, I don't know if you're subscribers or whatever, but you should subscribe and you should donate. But you have a great gift in Nell Bang Johnson. She was one of my best students ever at Swarthmore about 12 years ago. And I'm so sorry she can't be with us today because I haven't seen her almost as long since I haven't seen Becky, whose hair was much longer 10 years ago. It's not a tortured history, but my soup to nuts, I only had to spend 2 years on Head Over Heels, and usually Broadway musicals take about 8 to 10. It had been done in 2015 at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and Jeff Whitty, who wrote Avenue Q, came up with the insane and brilliant idea to mix The Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia, a romance by Sir Philip Sidney from 1580, with the song catalog of the Go-Go's. So when it opened in Oregon in 2015, I can just say 3 things about it. It was 3.5 hours long. It was 40 minutes before anybody sang. And they made the bold and I think wrong decision to play it on period instruments, meaning Renaissance, the tambour, the lute, the sackbut, and a spinet. But it didn't flop, and so they're because when musicals are aborning and in vitro for all those years, they got another chance the next summer at Vassar at Poughkeepsie at a summer place, and they got a new music director. And for some reason, and a new director, my pal Michael Mayer, and for some reason, Jeff Whitty just wouldn't come east for his own workshop. He had, my computer died, lost my whatever. He did not want to work on it anymore. He did not want, anyway, I've never met him. The first thing Michael Mayer said, come on up. See, we have a situation here. And so I watched their sort of 2-week workshop, and Michael said, well, what do you think? Do you think you can do it? And I said, well, of course. Not of course, and I decided, of course, the first thing I had to do was keep the blank verse, because that was a really fun challenge, just counting on my fingers to 10. And we cut the narrator. There were 2 gravediggers who were cut. We cut a song called This Town. At the time, Pythio appeared once and sang a Vision of Nowness, and I thought, as we were thinking about casting, I said, what could be more now than the, not discovery of the gender spectrum, but the fact that there is a gender spectrum, and so we thought, well, what would happen if Pythio were cast as a non-binary? And so we went with that, and then I created the story, the backstory of Demetus, and stealing from Shakespeare, from The Winter's Tale, that Mira was married to Demetus and was parent to Mopsa, and then, as you heard in the backstory, Demetus threw her out and raised her alone. So that was a new thing. I added eclogue for the funny shepherd stuff. And for Pythio, I added the owl and the golden stag as a Renaissance trope that I added. We added Turn to You, and the 4th prophecy of giving the crown to Gynecia. I added that, and it came at our very first workshop focusing on the book was the week we thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. And so it became even more important afterwards that Gynecia run this kingdom, while still making room for the old white straight guy, because every society does need them for more than even procreation. But it was very important to me that she says, no, wait, come back. And that's, and the other thing, and then I'm done, is I had to recontextualize a bunch of numbers. So like Vacation in the previous draft, Mopsa doesn't flee. It was like the shepherd and Philoclea get together, and they sort of, because the thing with these jukeboxes, it's like, can you really squeeze these songs in here? Do you have to squint? Or are they really like bogus transitions or bogus setups? So before, Philoclea and Musidorus were talking about the vacation they'd like to take. And that was a little bogus. And Mopsa and Pamela had gotten to a fight. I said, well, let's just let Mopsa leave. But for example, another one of my favorite songs is Good Girl that Philoclea sings about how she's unfortunately bound by the strictures of being a princess. That used to be Gynecia brought in a bunch of nuns to educate or re-educate Philoclea.
Wow.
It's a funny idea, but again, just so wrong. Anyway, so the adaptation was everything, and so soup to nuts. And my director said, don't even bother reading the Sydney. I read a few pages of that, and then I read an 18th century play version of Arcadia. But we had to hit the ground running, and again, the structure and the characters and the go-go's were there. So I didn't feel like I had to, oh my God, have you ever read a page of Arcadia? It's like reading The Fairy Queen. Anyway, so that's adaptation from my end.
Well, thank you so much. And Becky, you came into the world of Head Over Heels when you were invited to direct it here. When you read the text and you imagined this version at Theater Horizon, what was important for you to honor in this particular production?
Well, when they approached me to direct, Nell was like, we want you to do the Philly version of this show. And you have 8 people to do it with. So I was reading it with an eye towards that and thinking about my little corner of Philadelphia. I live in West Philadelphia, and I've been working in the theater community in Philadelphia for almost 20 years. And I was just thinking, well, if this is a Philly version, it's scrappy, it's punky, it's super queer, it's super joyful. It's not, we have our polished Renaissance costumes. It's, we threw a Ren Fair theme party in our friend's basement and thrifted our costumes and did our best sewing them into Renaissance costumes together and put some splatter paint on it. So that's, I mean, I was really thinking about like, how can we lean into the fun and the celebration of this? How can this really be, I mean, it's a fully cast and band and team, and how can we kind of make it about the celebration that we want to have in our city and in our arts community at this time. And I always, whenever I get to direct a script, I'm thinking like, why this play now? Why this play here? And I just feel like one of the things that the world really needs right now is a party, like a love party. So that's what I was coming into this with. And there's so much material there that in this play, it's so joyful, it's so buoyant. It's not like there aren't any problems, but there's like such a willingness to figure things out. So that spirit kind of infused our whole process.
Nice, thank you. And Elle, so a lot of musicals, the music is written for the show itself. This is a different kind of beast, speaking of adaptation, where you have the original music by the Go-Go's from the 1980s, then being reinterpreted by casts like the Broadway original cast recording, then making it its way to this cast and this production. So as you were going into this process, what choices did you choose to make in regards to how the music would live in this version?
All hands are on deck. We are all storytellers in this play, from the ensemble, the cast, to the band, and to you as the audience responding to it, and just sending your energy up to the stage. And so with that, with having but so many voices and so much space and so much time, and it being a Philly show, we got a lot of, talent. We got a lot of soul. We got a lot of musicality, and I wanted to be able to uplift that and express that, especially coming from I'm a theater person I'm a performing artist, by right, and from the beginning, but my main thing is music. My first instrument is singing. My first love is music and putting it on the stage. So I wanted to bring the party, the music aspect to the party, and I wanted to bring the concert to the theater as well, because it's all the same thing to me. So everybody got a chance to also show that as well. A lot of times we forget that we are not just an actor or an actress, or not just a singer or an instrumentalist, but we have all these other skills too, and to put that together is really important. It's part of telling that story. So that was my thought process for all of that.
Thank you. Well, thanks for writing the party, throwing it, and DJing. Yeah. Do we have any questions? Not at this time? All right. Oh, great. Sure. Go ahead.
Elle, I was wondering if there was an intention behind having the handheld mic moments as opposed to like the traditional theater type mic, because it felt like a very intentional choice.
Yes, it was. For functionality's sake, it was. There's so many things happening on the stage, and lavs are not the greatest thing to have in between. And in this space, acoustically, it's difficult. So it's easier and much more fun to have a microphone in your hand and bust out in song. You're already about to do it anyway, and it's already silly. So yeah, it is, and it's a party. It's like a karaoke party to me. Yeah.
I just want to add to that, our sound designer, Michael Kiley, and Elle hatched this idea in our very, very first design meeting. And it really did partly hinge on costumes. Like, we were like, what will they do when they're not singing? So, like, Rebecca Connect, the costume designer's willingness to, like, get harnesses for everyone and build that into the costume concept is part of what made this possible. And it was kind of it felt more true to the, like, basement party, thrift store, Ren Fair vibe than like super sleek lavs would have, even if everything acoustically were even. So it was kind of like, we came at this from a lot of different angles, and like had to practice. We had to have rehearsals with like fake mics so that we wouldn't lose track of like where they had to live and when.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that too.
Actors are amazing.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to mention about the sound
The beat.
Thanks for your feedback. All right.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
We can fix that.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other questions in the house or online? Yeah.
I'm like this. So I want to hear a little bit more about in terms of making the stage, getting the, Renaissance feel, but also the party feel, and, how did you celebrate this as, like, it is a celebration of color, of, everything, it's uplifting, like you said, but was it like a party of paint here? Like, that was awesome. So a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the question was really about scenic design and the splatter paint, and what was that process like? And was it a splatter paint party? How did it all happen?
I wasn't here when the paint happened. I think it was just one person who built the set and also did the splatter paint. But our set designer, Jenny Hayama, did a bunch of research on like Go-Go's era, like late 70s, early 80s, like punk aesthetic and punk venues, and like camp girly pop album covers and stuff like that. So this really came out of Go-Go's world, like in combination with concert world. I mean, we were all at the same meetings.
We were there.
Is
We're
that
all
accurate?
there. It's a vibe.
Yeah, Dot.
As a guitarist, I try to take full credit for overshadowing some of the speaking with my. I'm wondering how much the original Arcadia became a part of this. Like, how much of the story of this is Arcadia or isn't?
Sure. All of the characters are in Arcadia. It's a very important moment when Dionysius sees Cleophila urinating. Mopsa is a handmaid, but there's no lesbian relationship. And like I said, Demetus is just sort of like the viceroy. So that, again, was like invented. But,
I'm sorry. Here, I think but I will say that I feel when all is said and done, I was very proud of the fact that all of the 8 principals, because usually this is done, well, actually it's sometimes done with an ensemble, sometimes not, is that each of the 8 principals has a clear journey that has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. And they're all changed on the road to getting all the way back to Arcadia. So it's very important to me that everyone made some large revolution. So like sort of the more functionary roles like Mopsa and Demetus, once I sort of invented the steel from Winter's Tale, like that just fed right into it. So the characters, certainly. But the original Arcadia is about 400 pages long, and it's in verse. I don't know, did that answer your question? It answered a lot. Okay.
Yeah, Gil.
I'm curious, James, just from today's performance, was there any moment that stood out to you, or any moment that in all of your years working on this piece that kind of like locked in a way that felt new or felt resonating with you in this moment today?
That's a great question, and I want to say, again, I loved today. And this is my 7th production that I've seen, and I just saw the European premiere in Manchester that had a full ensemble of 8. No, actually, they only had 4. This was better. And now that I've seen it so many times and remember all the problems putting it together on Broadway and, inventing things for costume changes that are now, Becky and her team created some, like, for example, 2 numbers that I really have a hard time watching anymore. This was the best cool jerk I'd ever seen. The solution to put them all on that little circuit, because it's usually spread out, and if you talk about not being able to hear stuff, there's some, basically Cool Jerk exists so the world knows that Mops has been gone for 6 weeks. So that was the best Cool Jerk I think I'll ever see. It was also an amazing, because for me, the number that it's always hardest for me and for the original director to watch is Vision of Nowness. This was like the best vision of nowness. That's with the snakes. and what you do with the snakes, that was amazingly well done with simple means. Because, Broadway was like $10 million, and this is, I don't know what the fractions are, but it just shows that, again, there's something about this piece, and it is joyful. And there was a moment in previews when Michael Mayer, the original director, and I said, wow, we're such bitches. Why is this thing so sunny and joyful and hopeful? And it's because we were living in miserable times in 2018. We created just a party we wanted, and the party keeps going on. And again, the visuals were amazing. I especially loved, it looked like upholstery fabric for the king and queen. Yes, with the big, that was, and the Fogos, that's our name for the band. They're not the Go-Go's, they're the Faux. They were amazing. And I have to say, I'm sorry that you couldn't hear it as well as you did, but this is, I was telling Becky that the scene work was real scene work. It felt like a play. And that's not to say that this was like a play with music. It was a musical, but it completely honored the beats and the intentions and things, because as an incredibly talented cast. So anyway, I loved today. And if it weren't so far away, I'm going to have to send my husband, but I'll probably come back.
Yay!
Yeah. As long as Basilius says common wheel. Noted. I hear it's not the first time you've gotten that note. That's okay. They said it in Britain too. And I thought, if anybody knows what a common wheel is, it's some Brits. Anyway.
Well, I would love to know from each of you, what was the most challenging part of the head over heels process for you, and what was the most rewarding part?
Let's just stare at Elle until she says something.
I don't know. I don't have a difficult, not really being able to, see it all the time. Having to walk away from it and, give the baby away, to not sing at least one song or wake up singing reflection of it. It's a good earworm. So I think that's the difficult part.
I mean, it really was such a joy to work on this piece. I feel like there's such a talented cast, and there's always this moment where you're like, these people are doing so much, and how can we get all of the last screws tightened without overextending folks who can literally sing and dance at the same time? To me, it's like a superpower. So I think, that's just a routine challenge of process, getting all of the, getting all the last, doing the final push. But I really felt like this was so much fun to work on from the start. And Theater Horizon is such a great place to work. They have a snack room back there. So you're just always really well taken care of in this building. And felt like we had a really good exchange between producers and creative team and performing ensemble to kind of problem solve with and address things as they came up, which doesn't always happen. So that just makes challenges feel like fun puzzles rather than big roadblocks. And I think the script really lends itself to joy. And the cast really took ownership of that. And we kind of got to party the whole time. My experience. You should ask the actors, because they might have a totally different story to tell.
I just want to give a shout out to the dramaturgy on the walls. I trained as a dramaturg, so this is the first time I've seen any dramaturgy appended to a production, and that made me very happy.
Thank you.
And I learned something every day. Who knew that redheads are only 2% of the population? That was a fun fact. The challenge, in getting it together, was just kind of getting it shorter and shorter and shorter. And still, and for example, Turn to You. The reason that's in there, I'm glad it's in there, is because, the director said we can't have Basilius and Genesius sing 2 songs back to back. Then it's like the Sonny and Cher show. So I said, all right, let's look for, so it's weird, all these years later, sort of 5 years after Broadway, to remember like certain things that were really like problem solving, covering scenic change, and then now it's just so organic. You know, like, yeah, I just love, you know, and I'm glad I helped create this party because, you know, linguistically or discursively, you'll notice there's like the eclogue, and then the royals speak in longer thoughts, but then every once in a while somebody say, here's a note, gotcha, bye, you know, and that allows that playfulness. So I'm, you know, just no challenges other than always rewriting. Always rewriting, yes.
Yes. All right, well, are there any last questions? Yeah.
Thank you. I was just wondering how you guys help the cast to find their personal identities in each of their characters, considering the show has so many consistencies with the music and with the set and their costumes. There's a lot of consistencies with all those things. So how did you help those people find their own person in each of it?
It's always a collaborative effort, you know, throughout, from beginning to end. You know, vocally allowing them to make their musical choices in what they felt most comfortable in doing and what they felt like is possible, and what fit within the story. All of it was just, you know, a collaborative effort, and just supporting that is always the name of the game: collaboration and support.
Yeah, ditto to that. I mean, the first question is like, who are you? You know, and I'd rather have an actor tell me what they see than me tell them what I want to see. At least it's a first step. So we were in conversation about it from the start. And with this piece, with a musical, like there's so much music to learn, there's so many dance moves. And so like a lot of stuff happens. There's a lot of world building before you get to really dig into character. So I feel like by the time we were having those conversations, we were kind of deeply on the same page in terms of what we were making. And the characters really grew from those conversations. But I'm glad that you saw that, because I do feel like this particular group of actors really did make these people their own and found the versions of them that were theirs. And, you know, so I think there's sometimes a tendency to, like, when something's been recently on Broadway, to try and like do it like they did it. And I really feel like we kind of got to do it like we did it. So that's a triumph for us.
Well, thank you. One last quick question, selfishly. If you were to have a jukebox musical about your own life, what would the soundtrack be? Who would make the music?
Maybe I could, well, this would, like, from my youth, like, maybe I could have, like, the Paula Abdul jukebox musical.
Paula Abdul,
If
I
anyone's
love it.
interested in collaborating on that, hit me up.
I'd say the B-52s with a Jetsons story.
That is hilarious.
Or, well, I'm a show queen, but yeah, or REM. Nice. Or you know, Magnetic Fields, but they have done a musical.
All great choices, though.
I'm gonna cheat and go very, very broad. It's gonna be a 90s pop, R&B, hip hop jukebox. It's gonna be a playlist.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mixtape.
Mixtape musical.
We love to see it. A mixtape.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for your questions. It's been so nice to have this conversation. That's all she wrote.
Yay! That was fun.